The sun was starting to set as Marcus Thompson drove down the empty highway. He had spent the weekend with his mother in her small house 2 hours away. She was getting older, and he tried to visit her as often as he could. The drive back was usually peaceful. Marcus enjoyed the quiet time to think and listen to music. He was dressed in simple clothes. A plain blue t-shirt and jeans. Nothing fancy. After years of wearing uniforms, he liked to dress comfortably when he had free time. His car was nice but not too flashy. A dark blue sedan that he had bought 2 years ago. It was reliable and drove smoothly. Marcus was thinking about the work waiting for him tomorrow when he noticed the flashing lights behind him. Red and blue colors filled his rearview mirror. He felt his stomach tighten. He had not been speeding. He always followed the rules of the road carefully. Very carefully. He slowed down and pulled over to the side of the highway. The patrol car stopped behind him. Marcus put his car in park and placed both hands on the steering wheel, where they could be seen clearly. He had learned to do this a long time ago. It was safer this way. Through his side mirror, Marcus watched the officer get out of the patrol car. The officer was a white man, average height with a thick build. He walked slowly toward Marcus's car. His hand rested on his belt near his weapon. Marcus noticed this right away. The officer reached the window and tapped on the glass with his knuckles. Marcus rolled down the window halfway. The warm evening air came into the car. "License and registration," the officer said. His voice was flat and cold. He did not say hello. He did not explain why he had pulled Marcus over. "Good evening, officer," Marcus said politely. "May I ask why you stopped me?" The officer stared at him for a long moment. His eyes moved over Marcus's face, then down to his clothes, then to the inside of the car. "License and registration," he repeated. "No." Marcus kept his voice calm and steady. "Of course. I need to reach into my glove compartment for my registration. My wallet is in my back pocket. Go ahead." "Slowly," the officer said. His hand moved closer to his weapon. Marcus moved very carefully. He reached across to open the glove compartment. He pulled out the registration papers and his insurance card. Then he slowly reached behind him to get his wallet from his back pocket. Every movement was slow and clear. He handed everything through the window. The officer took the documents without saying thank you. He looked at the license for a long time. Too long. "Marcus Thompson," he read out loud. "This your real name?" "Yes, sir," Marcus answered. "This your car?" the officer asked, looking at the registration. "Yes, sir. As you can see from the registration." "Where are you coming from?" The officer's tone had changed. It was becoming more aggressive. "I was visiting my mother. She lives in Greenville." "Where are you going?" "I'm heading home," Marcus said simply. "Where is home?" Marcus gave his address. The officer wrote nothing down. He just stared at Marcus with suspicious eyes. "What do you do for work?" the officer asked. Marcus paused. This question had nothing to do with the traffic stop. "I work for the government," he said. It was not a lie, but it was not the complete truth either. "Government work, huh?" The officer's mouth twisted into something that was not quite a smile. "What kind of government work?" "May I ask what I did wrong, officer?" Marcus asked. "Why did you pull me over?" "I'll ask the questions here," the officer snapped. His name tag read Henderson. Officer Henderson leaned down closer to the window. "You were driving suspiciously." "Suspiciously?" Marcus kept his voice level. "How was I driving suspiciously?" "You were looking around a lot. Seemed nervous. Like you were watching for police." Marcus knew this was not true. He had been driving normally, looking at the road ahead like any careful driver would. "I wasn't aware of that, officer. I was just driving home." Henderson straightened up. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. "Why do I need to step out? What law have I broken?" "I said step out of the vehicle!" Henderson's voice got louder. "Don't make this difficult." Marcus knew he had choices. He could refuse. He could demand answers. But he also knew that arguing with an aggressive officer on a lonely stretch of highway could be dangerous, very dangerous. He had heard too many stories. Bad stories that ended in tragedy. "I'm stepping out now," Marcus said clearly. He wanted Henderson to know exactly what he was doing. He opened the door slowly and stepped onto the dusty shoulder of the road. Henderson immediately told him to turn around and put his hands on the car. Marcus did as he was told. The metal of the car was still warm from the sun. Traffic was light, but a few cars passed by. Some slowed down to look. No one stopped. Spread your legs, Henderson ordered. Marcus complied. He felt Henderson's hands pat down his sides, his back, his legs. It was rough and aggressive. More aggressive than necessary. Nice car for someone on a government salary, Henderson said from behind him. How can you afford a car like this? Marcus took a slow breath. I work hard. I save my money, yeah? Henderson moved to stand beside him. Or maybe you have other ways of making money. Ways that aren't legal. Marcus turned his head slightly to look at the officer. Are you accusing me of something specific? I'm saying nice cars like this don't come cheap. And I'm wondering how you really pay for it. The meaning was clear. Henderson was suggesting Marcus was a criminal. A drug dealer, maybe. Or something else illegal. All because of the color of his skin and a decent car. I purchased this car legally with money I earned legally, Marcus said. Each word was controlled. Henderson walked around to face him. You fit the description of a suspect we're looking for. A robbery that happened last week. Marcus knew this was a lie. A common lie used by officers like Henderson. What robbery? What description? Blackmail about your height and build, driving a dark sedan. That description could fit thousands of men. Tens of thousands. It was so broad it was meaningless. I have nothing to do with any robbery, Marcus said firmly. That's what they all say, Henderson replied. He pulled out his radio. This is Henderson. I need backup at mile marker 47 on Highway 21. I have a suspicious individual matching the description from the Oakdale robbery. Marcus closed his eyes for a brief second. This was getting worse. Much worse. Henderson was calling for more officers. The situation was escalating for no reason except the color of his skin and Henderson's prejudice. He thought about his 30 years of service. All the years he had spent defending his country. The medals in a box at home. The men and women who saluted him every day. And here he was being treated like a common criminal on the side of the road. Officer Henderson, Marcus said quietly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is you thinking you can drive through my town and get away with whatever you're up to, Henderson said. Marcus said nothing more. He knew that anything he said now would not matter. Henderson had already decided who Marcus was. And nothing Marcus said would change his mind. Not yet. The sun continued to set. The sky turned orange and purple, and Marcus waited, his hands still on his car for whatever would happen next. Marcus stood with his hands on the car for what felt like a very long time. Officer Henderson had walked back to his patrol car to wait for backup. Every few minutes, Henderson would look up and stare at Marcus through his windshield. Marcus did not move. He stayed exactly where Henderson had told him to stand. The highway was getting darker now. The sun had almost completely set. A few cars passed by. Marcus could see people in the cars turning their heads to look at him. Some slowed down. One car stopped on the other side of the road. Marcus saw someone holding up a phone. They were recording. He felt both grateful and ashamed at the same time. Finally, another patrol car pulled up behind Henderson's vehicle. A female officer got out. She was younger than Henderson, maybe in her early 30s. She had her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She walked over to where Henderson was standing by his car. Marcus could not hear what they were saying, but he could see them talking. Henderson was gesturing with his hands. The female officer was nodding, but her face looked uncertain. She glanced over at Marcus several times. After a few minutes, both officers walked toward Marcus together. Henderson was in front. The female officer followed a few steps behind. Her name tag said Mitchell. All right, turn around, Henderson ordered. Marcus turned slowly to face them. He kept his hands visible at his sides. His body was tired from standing in the same position for so long, but he did not show it. This is Officer Mitchell, Henderson said. We're going to search your vehicle. I do not consent to a search, Marcus said calmly but clearly. He knew his rights. He had studied them carefully over the years. Henderson's face got red. You don't consent? That's funny. I think you're hiding something. That gives me probable cause, and what probable cause? Marcus asked. I have not committed any crime. You pulled me over without explaining why. You have not shown any evidence that I've done anything wrong. I told you, you match the description of a robbery suspect. A description so general it could match half the men in this state, Marcus said. His voice stayed calm, but inside he was angry. Very angry. He had spent decades leading soldiers, making life and death decisions. earning the respect of thousands of people. And now he was being treated like this. Mitchell shifted her weight from one foot to the other. She looked uncomfortable. "Sir, if you just cooperate, this will go faster." "I am cooperating," Marcus said, looking at her directly. "I have provided my license and registration. I have answered questions. I have followed every instruction. But I have rights, and I do not consent to a search of my vehicle without probable cause." Henderson stepped closer to Marcus. Too close. Marcus could smell coffee on his breath. "Listen to me very carefully. You can either let us search the car, or I can arrest you right now for obstruction." "Your choice." "Obstruction of what?" Marcus asked. "What crime am I obstructing?" "Don't get smart with me." Henderson's voice was loud now, angry. "I've dealt with people like you before. You think you're better than everyone else. You think the rules don't apply to you. People like you." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus knew exactly what Henderson meant. He had heard those words before. Many times. In different situations, always with the same meaning underneath. "I think the rules apply to everyone," Marcus said quietly. "Including police officers." Henderson's jaw clenched. His hand moved toward his handcuffs. "That's it. You're under arrest, Dale," Mitchell said suddenly. Her voice was sharp. "What are the charges?" Henderson turned to look at her. "What? What are you charging him with?" "He's right. He's been cooperative. He hasn't broken any laws that I can see. He's resisting. He's asserting his constitutional rights," Mitchell said. "That's not resisting." Marcus watched the exchange between the two officers. Mitchell was young, but she seemed to understand that something was wrong here. "Very wrong," Henderson pointed at Marcus. "He matches the description from the Oakdale robbery." "The Oakdale robbery," Mitchell said slowly. "The suspect from that was described as 6 feet 4 inches tall, wasn't he? This man is maybe 5'10" or 5'11" at most." Marcus was exactly 5 feet 11 inches tall. Mitchell was right. Henderson's face got even redder. "The witness could have been wrong about the height. And the car," Mitchell continued. "Wasn't the suspect's car described as a dark blue sports car?" "This is a sedan." Marcus felt something shift. Mitchell was questioning Henderson's story. She was poking holes in it. "Look," Henderson said, his voice tight with frustration. "I know a criminal when I see one. This guy's up to something. I can feel it." "Feeling it isn't probable cause," Mitchell said. Henderson turned back to Marcus. His eyes were full of anger now. "Where were you last Tuesday night?" "I was at work," Marcus answered. "Can anyone verify that?" "Yes, many people." "What about last month?" "Where were you on the 15th?" Marcus thought for a moment. "I would need to check my calendar, but most likely I was at work." "Most likely," Henderson repeated like it was proof of something. "See? He can't account for his time." "He said most likely he was at work," Mitchell said. "That's not the same as not being able to account for his time." Henderson ignored her. He moved even closer to Marcus. "I'm going to ask you one more time. What do you really do for a living? And I want the truth this time." "I told you the truth. I work for the government." "Doing what?" Marcus hesitated. He did not want to use his position to get out of this situation. That felt wrong somehow. Like he would be saying that his rank made him better than other people who Henderson might stop. Other people who did not have his authority or his privilege. But this situation was getting dangerous. "I work in administration," Marcus said. It was true in a way. Commanding officers did a lot of administrative work. "Administration?" Henderson said with a nasty smile. "Like a desk job? Pushing papers?" "Something like that." "Let me tell you what I think," Henderson said. He started walking in a circle around Marcus, like a predator circling prey. "I think you're lying. I think you make your money some other way. Maybe selling drugs, maybe stealing cars, maybe running some kind of scam. And I think that car is either stolen or bought with dirty money." Each accusation hit Marcus like a punch, but he kept his face neutral. He had learned long ago how to control his emotions, how to stay calm under pressure. "Those are serious accusations," Marcus said. "Do you have any evidence to support them?" "I have my instincts, and my instincts are usually right." Marcus looked Henderson directly in the eyes. "Your instincts are based on the color of my skin." "Nothing more than, how dare you?" Henderson shouted. "I am not racist. I treat everyone the same." "Then why am I standing here?" Marcus asked. "You still haven't told me what traffic violation I committed." "You pulled me over for no reason. You accused me of crimes with no evidence. You threatened to arrest me for exercising my rights. If you treat everyone the same, then you treat everyone terribly. Henderson's hand shot out and grabbed Marcus's arm, hard. His fingers dug into Marcus's bicep. You need to learn some respect. Dale. Mitchell moved forward quickly. Let him go. Stay out of this, Mitchell. I said let him go. Mitchell's voice was firm now. Commanding. Henderson held on for another second, then released Marcus's arm roughly. Marcus stumbled back a step. As Marcus caught his balance, he felt something fall from his pocket. Several items hit the ground with small thuds. He looked down. His military ID card was lying face up on the dusty shoulder of the road. Next to it was his Pentagon building access card, and next to that was an envelope, a letter that had been in his pocket. The address on the envelope was clearly visible in the patrol car's headlights. The letter was addressed to Colonel Marcus Thompson. Mitchell saw it first. Her eyes went wide. She bent down and picked up the military ID card. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she looked up at Marcus. Then she looked at Henderson. Dale, she said quietly. Her voice was shaking slightly. This man is an Army colonel. Henderson froze. The anger on his face changed to confusion. He reached out and snatched the ID card from Mitchell's hand. He looked at it. Then he looked at Marcus. Then back at the ID card. The silence stretched out for several long seconds. The only sound was the traffic passing on the highway and the quiet hum of the patrol car engines. Marcus stood up straighter. His entire bearing changed. He was no longer just a man being harassed on the side of the road. He was a commanding officer, a leader of thousands, and everyone there could suddenly see it. Henderson stared at the military ID card in his hand. The plastic card seemed to glow in the light from the patrol car. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No words came out. Mitchell picked up the Pentagon access card and the envelope from the ground. She looked at them both carefully. Her hands were shaking slightly. Sir, she said to Marcus. Her voice was completely different now, respectful. Sir, I apologize. I didn't know. You should not need to know my rank to treat me with basic dignity, Marcus said quietly. Mitchell's face went pale. She nodded slowly. You're absolutely right, sir. Henderson finally found his voice. You're a colonel? The words came out strangled, like they hurt to say. Colonel Marcus Thompson, Marcus said. His voice had changed too. It was still calm, but now it carried authority. The kind of authority that came from years of command. United States Army. I command Fort Stevens. 40 miles from here. Fort Stevens. The name hung in the air. It was a large military base. Everyone in the area knew about it. Thousands of soldiers trained there. It was one of the most important bases in the region. Henderson's face went through several expressions very quickly. Confusion, disbelief, and then something that looked like fear. You weren't in uniform. How was I supposed to know? You were not supposed to know, Marcus said. That should not matter. You stopped me without cause. You accused me of multiple crimes without evidence. You threatened to arrest me for asserting my constitutional rights. You used excessive force. Marcus gestured to his arm where Henderson had grabbed him. There were already red marks forming. And you did all of this before you knew anything about who I am. That is the problem. I was just doing my job, Henderson said, but his voice had lost all its earlier confidence. He sounded defensive now, desperate. Your job, Marcus repeated. Is your job to pull over innocent citizens without cause? Is your job to make racist assumptions? Is your job to violate people's rights? I never said anything racist. Henderson's voice got louder again, but it was different this time. He was not angry anymore. He was scared. You did not need to say specific words, Marcus said. Your actions spoke clearly enough. You saw a black man in a nice car and immediately assumed I was a criminal. You called me suspicious for driving on a public highway. You suggested I could not afford my car through legal means. You accused me of dealing drugs, of stealing, of running scams, all without any evidence, all based on your instincts. Marcus paused. And we both know what your instincts are really based on. Mitchell was standing very still. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Several more cars had stopped on the other side of the highway now. More people were recording with their phones. The flashing lights from the patrol cars lit up the growing darkness. Henderson looked around at all the watching people, at the phones pointed in his direction. His face went from red to pale. Look, this has all been a misunderstanding. A big misunderstanding. You can go. You're free to go. A misunderstanding, Marcus said. The word sounded bitter in his mouth. You handcuffed me in your mind before you even walked up to my car. There was no misunderstanding. You understood perfectly what you were doing. I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry. Henderson held out Marcus's license and registration. His hand was shaking. Marcus did not take them immediately. How many? He asked. How many what? How many other people have you done this to? How many other drivers have you pulled over without cause? How many other black men and women have stood on this highway while you accused them of crimes they did not commit? Henderson said nothing. He just stared at the ground. How many? Marcus asked again, his voice harder now. I don't keep count, Henderson muttered. No, I suppose you do not, Marcus said. Because to you it is just another day. Just another traffic stop. But for the people you stop, it is terrifying. It is humiliating. It is a reminder that no matter how hard they work, no matter what they achieve, there will always be people like you who see them as criminals first. Mitchell stepped forward. Sir Colonel Thompson, sir. I want to apologize too. I should have stopped this sooner. I should have spoken up more. I could see that something was wrong, but She stopped. She seemed to be struggling to find the right words. I was wrong too. I'm sorry, Marcus looked at her. She was young. Maybe this was her first year or two on the force. He could see genuine regret in her eyes. That was something, at least. Officer Mitchell, Marcus said, you did speak up. You questioned his probable cause. You reminded him of his duty. That took courage. Many officers would not have done even that much. Mitchell nodded, but she did not look comforted. It wasn't enough. No, Marcus agreed. It was not enough. But it was a start. He turned back to Henderson. Give me the names and contact information of the people who have been recording this encounter. Henderson looked confused. What? The witnesses? The people with their phones. I want their information. I will need it for my formal complaint. Formal complaint? Henderson's voice cracked slightly. Did you think I would simply drive away? Marcus asked. Did you think I would forget about this? I am filing a formal complaint with your department. I am filing a complaint with the State Police Oversight Board, and I am contacting my attorney. Now wait a minute, Henderson said, holding up his hands. Let's not be hasty. Like I said, it was a misunderstanding. No harm done, right? Marcus pulled up his sleeve. The red marks on his arm were clearly visible. They would be bruises by tomorrow. No harm? Henderson looked at the marks and went pale again. You assaulted me, Marcus said flatly. You violated my civil rights. You engaged in racial profiling. And you did all of this while wearing a badge and carrying a gun. That is not a small thing. That is not something I can ignore. Look, I have a family, Henderson said. His voice was pleading now. I have kids. If you report this, I could lose my job. Marcus felt no sympathy. I have a family too. I have a son. He is 19 years old. He is in college, and he is terrified of police officers. Do you know why? Because of encounters like this. Because he knows that his skin color makes him a target. He could be a doctor someday, or a lawyer, or a teacher, and none of that would matter to someone like you. You would still see him as suspicious, as dangerous, as guilty. I'm not like that, Henderson protested weakly. You are exactly like that, Marcus said. And if you lose your job, that is your fault. Not mine. You made choices tonight. Bad choices. Now you have to face the consequences. A truck slowed down as it passed. The driver honked the horn. Someone yelled out the window, but Marcus could not make out the words. The scene was attracting more and more attention. Mitchell walked over to the witnesses who were recording. Marcus watched as she talked to them and wrote down their information. Several people nodded eagerly. They wanted to help. They understood what they had witnessed. Henderson just stood there looking defeated. All his earlier aggression had drained away. He looked smaller somehow. Older. I want to make something very clear, Marcus said. This is not about revenge. This is not about destroying your career or your life. This is about accountability. This is about making sure that you and every other officer understands that you cannot treat people this way. Every person you stop deserves to be treated with basic human dignity. Not just colonels. Not just people with rank or status or power, everyone. Henderson nodded slowly. He would not look Marcus in the eyes. Mitchell came back with a piece of paper. I have the witness information, sir. 5 people in total. They all said they recorded the entire encounter. They're willing to provide their footage. Thank you, Officer Mitchell, Marcus said. He took the paper from her. What happens now? Mitchell asked quietly. Now I go home, Marcus said. I will write a detailed account of everything that happened here tonight. I will contact the appropriate authorities tomorrow, and I will make sure this is investigated properly. Mitchell nodded. Will you? She hesitated. Will you be reporting me as well? Marcus considered this. You failed to intervene as much as you should have. But you did intervene eventually, and you showed respect when you realized your mistake. I will mention that in my report. What happens after that is not up to me. I understand, Mitchell said. For what it's worth, I am truly sorry, and I will do better. See that you do, Marcus said. He walked back to his car. His legs felt tired. His whole body felt tired. It had been a long day. A long, frustrating, exhausting day. He got into his car and closed the door. Through the windshield, he could see Henderson and Mitchell standing by their patrol cars. Henderson was talking on his radio, probably calling his supervisor, probably trying to figure out how to minimize the damage. Marcus started his car. He put on his seatbelt. He adjusted his mirror, and then he just sat there for a moment. His hands were gripping the steering wheel tightly. His jaw was clenched. All the anger he had been holding back came flooding through him. He had spent 30 years serving his country. He had led soldiers into combat. He had made decisions that saved lives. He had earned medals and commendations. He had earned respect, and yet tonight none of that had mattered. Tonight he had been just another black man on the side of the road. Just another suspect. Just another person who did not belong. He took several deep breaths. Slowly the anger subsided. Not gone, but controlled. Marcus drove the rest of the way home in silence. He did not turn on the radio. He did not make any phone calls. He just drove and thought about what had happened. When he finally pulled into his driveway, it was almost 9 o'clock at night. The house was dark. His wife Rachel was probably already asleep. She worked early shifts at the hospital as a nurse. Their son David was away at college 3 states over. Marcus sat in the car for a few minutes after turning off the engine. He looked at his hands on the steering wheel. They were steady now. During his years in the military, he had been in situations much more dangerous than a traffic stop. He had been shot at. He had seen friends die. He had made split-second decisions that meant life or death for his soldiers, but somehow this felt different. In combat, he had known who the enemy was. He had known the rules. He had known what he was fighting for. Tonight on that highway, the threat had come from someone who was supposed to protect citizens, someone who wore a badge, someone who was supposed to uphold the law, not break it. Marcus got out of the car and went inside. He walked quietly through the dark house to his home office. He turned on the desk lamp and sat down. His computer hummed to life. He opened a blank document and began to type. He wrote down everything that had happened, every word that was spoken, every action that was taken. He described Henderson's aggressive behavior. He noted the time he was pulled over and how long he was detained. He wrote about the baseless accusations and the threat of arrest. He wrote for over an hour. When he was done, the document was 5 pages long. He read through it twice, making sure every detail was accurate. Then he saved it and sent copies to his personal email and to a secure cloud storage account. It was after 10 o'clock when he finally went upstairs. Rachel was awake now, sitting up in bed reading a book. She looked up when he came in. "You're late," she said. Then she saw his face. "What happened?" Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. He was quiet for a moment. Then he told her everything. Rachel listened without interrupting. As he talked, her expression changed from concern to anger. When he showed her the bruises on his arm where Henderson had grabbed him, her eyes filled with tears. "That man put his hands on you," she said. Her voice was shaking. "He could have hurt you. He could have—" She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. They both knew what could have happened. They had seen the news stories. Black men shot during traffic stops. Killed for reaching for their wallet. For moving too quickly. For talking back. For no reason at all except the color of their skin. "I'm okay," Marcus said softly. He took her hand. I'm here. I'm safe. This time, Rachel said. But what about next time? What about David? What happens when he gets pulled over? Marcus had no answer for that. It was his greatest fear, that his son would face the same situation. But David did not have 30 years of military experience. David did not have the training to stay calm under extreme pressure. David was just a kid. A good kid who studied hard and wanted to be an engineer. But to someone like Henderson, David would just be another suspicious black man. I'm filing a complaint tomorrow, Marcus said, a formal complaint with the police department. And with the State Oversight Board. And I'm calling my attorney, Rachel nodded. Good, that man should not be a police officer. It's not just about him, Marcus said. It's about the system. It's about all the other officers like him. And it's about making sure this doesn't keep happening. They talked for another hour. Finally, Rachel turned off her lamp. Get some rest, she said. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. But Marcus could not sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His mind kept replaying the encounter. Henderson's face. The way he had said, people like you. The fear and humiliation of standing on the side of the road while cars drove past. While people recorded him like he was part of a show. At some point, he must have fallen asleep because the next thing he knew, sunlight was coming through the window. Rachel was already gone. A note on her pillow said she had left for her shift at the hospital and that she loved him. Marcus got up and made coffee. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop and started making phone calls. The first call was to the police department. He asked to speak to the chief. The person who answered said the chief was not available. Marcus left a detailed message. He gave his name, his rank, and a brief description of what had happened. He said he would be filing a formal written complaint and that he expected a response within 24 hours. The second call was to the State Police Oversight Board. He explained the situation to a woman named Janet, who sounded both professional and sympathetic. She told him to email his written account and that they would open an investigation. The third call was to his attorney, a man named Robert Chen, who had helped Marcus with legal matters for years. Robert listened carefully to the whole story. This is serious, Robert said. Very serious. We're talking about civil rights violations, assault, racial profiling. If the witnesses have clear video evidence, you have a strong case. I don't want money, Marcus said. I want accountability. I understand, Robert said. But sometimes the threat of a lawsuit is the only thing that makes organizations take real action. We can discuss options. First, let's make sure the complaint goes through the proper channels. Marcus spent the rest of the morning sending emails and making copies of documents. He contacted all 5 witnesses and asked them to send him their video recordings. By noon, he had received 4 of the 5 videos. Each one showed the encounter from a slightly different angle. Together, they provided a complete picture of what had happened. Marcus watched the videos once. Then he watched them again. It was strange seeing himself from an outside perspective. He had stayed so calm, so controlled. Even when Henderson had grabbed his arm, Marcus had not reacted with anger or violence. He had simply stood his ground and asserted his rights. Around 1 o'clock, his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was from Fort Stevens, his executive officer, Major Sarah Williams. Sir, she said when he answered, I just heard about what happened last night. Are you all right? I'm fine, Sarah. How did you hear about it? It's on social media, sir. The videos. They're everywhere. People are sharing them and talking about it. Some of the soldiers recognized you. Marcus pulled up a social media site on his laptop. Sarah was right. The videos had been posted and were being shared rapidly. Thousands of people had already seen them, maybe tens of thousands. The comments were mostly supportive. Racist. Cop gets exposed. This is what black people deal with every day. That officer should be fired immediately. Respect. To the colonel for staying calm. But there were negative comments too. People defending Henderson. People saying Marcus should have just complied. People suggesting the videos did not show the full story. Sir? Sarah's voice brought him back to the phone call. Do you need anything? Anything at all? No, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you checking on me. I'll be back on base tomorrow. Actually, sir, General Morrison wants to speak with you. He asked me to have you call him when you have a chance. General James Morrison was Marcus's commanding officer, a 3-star general who oversaw multiple bases in the region. Marcus had worked with him for years and respected him greatly. "I'll call him now," Marcus said. He hung up with Sarah and dialed the general's direct line. The general answered on the second ring. "Marcus," he said, "I saw the videos. Tell me what happened." Marcus went through the story again. The general listened without interrupting. "That's unacceptable," the general said when Marcus finished. "Completely unacceptable. You have my full support. Whatever you need. Legal assistance. Public affairs support, anything. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I mean it, Marcus. You're one of the best officers I've ever worked with. And what happened to you is exactly the kind of thing we talk about when we discuss why some communities don't trust the military or law enforcement. If it can happen to a colonel, it can happen to anyone." "That's exactly my point, sir," Marcus said. "This isn't about my rank. This is about basic dignity and constitutional rights." "Agreed. Keep me updated. And Marcus, don't let this break you. Use it. Use your voice. A lot of people are going to be watching how this plays out." After he hung up with the general, Marcus sat back in his chair. The situation was bigger now. It was not just about him and Henderson anymore. It was becoming a public story, a symbol of something larger. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from his son, David. "Dad, I just saw the videos. Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry that happened to you." Marcus called him immediately. David answered right away. "Dad, I'm okay, son. I'm fine. I can't believe that cop treated you like that." David's voice was angry. "You're a colonel. You've served for 30 years. David, listen to me. My rank doesn't matter. That's the problem. Every person deserves to be treated with respect. Not just colonels or generals or people with power. Everyone. I know, but still, it's not fair." "No," Marcus agreed. "It's not fair. But we don't give up. We don't accept it. We fight back through the proper channels. We demand accountability. We work to change the system." "What if that doesn't work?" David asked quietly. "What if they don't do anything?" "Then we keep fighting," Marcus said. "We document everything. We make noise. We don't let them forget. Change doesn't happen overnight. But it does happen if enough people refuse to accept injustice." They talked for a while longer. Marcus could hear the worry in his son's voice, the fear. David had faced his own experiences with discrimination. Smaller incidents, but still painful. "Still wrong. Be careful, Dad," David said before they hung up. "Please be careful." "Always," Marcus promised. The rest of the day was a blur of phone calls and emails. Reporters started calling, asking for interviews. Marcus declined for now. He wanted to let the formal complaint process work first. By evening, the local police department had released a statement. It said they were aware of the incident and were conducting an internal investigation. Officer Henderson had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. They assured the public that they took all complaints seriously. It was a standard statement, careful, non-committal, but it was something. Marcus printed out the statement and added it to his growing file of documents. He had a feeling this was going to take a long time. Weeks, maybe months, but he was prepared for that. He had patience. And he had something else that Henderson did not have. He had truth on his side. 2 weeks had passed since that night on the highway. Marcus had returned to work at Fort Stevens, but the incident followed him everywhere. Soldiers would stop him in hallways to express their support. Some shared their own stories of being pulled over for no reason, stories that made Marcus's anger burn even hotter. The videos had now been viewed millions of times. News organizations from across the country had picked up the story. "Army Colonel racially profiled during traffic stop" was the headline on most articles. Marcus's face was now recognizable to people who had never heard of him before. He had given exactly one interview, to a local news reporter who had been respectful and thorough in her research. Marcus had been careful with his words. He did not want this to become about him personally. He wanted it to be about the larger issue of racial profiling and police accountability. "This happens to people every single day," he had said in the interview. "The only reason my case is getting attention is because I'm a colonel and because witnesses recorded it. But what about all the people who don't have rank, who don't have witnesses, who don't have video evidence? Those are the people we need to think about." The interview had aired 3 days ago. Since then, Marcus had received hundreds of messages, emails, letters. Some were from fellow military personnel. Some were from civilians who had experienced similar treatment. And some were from people who wanted to tell him that he was wrong. that he was exaggerating. That race had nothing to do with what happened. Those messages hurt the most, not because they made him doubt himself, but because they showed how many people still refused to see the truth. Marcus was sitting in his office at the base when Major Williams knocked on his doorframe. She was holding a folder. "Sir, the Internal Affairs Office from the police department sent over their preliminary findings. I thought you'd want to see them immediately." Marcus gestured for her to come in. She placed the folder on his desk. He opened it and began to read. The report was surprisingly thorough. It detailed the timeline of the traffic stop. It included transcripts of Henderson's radio calls. It contained statements from both Henderson and Mitchell, and it included analysis of the witness videos. The conclusion was clear. Officer Henderson had conducted an unlawful traffic stop. He had no valid reason to pull Marcus over. His claim about a robbery suspect did not match the actual description from that case. He had violated department policy regarding probable cause. He had used excessive force when he grabbed Marcus's arm, and he had demonstrated bias in his treatment of Marcus. The report recommended that Henderson face disciplinary action up to and including termination. It also recommended that he undergo mandatory bias training if he remained with the department. Marcus read the report twice. Then he sat back in his chair. This was good. Better than he had expected, honestly. Internal police investigations often protected officers, but this one seemed fair, honest. "How do you feel, sir?" Williams asked. "Cautiously optimistic," Marcus said. "The report is strong. But a report is just words on paper. What matters is what they actually do. Do you think they'll fire him? I don't know. The police union will fight it. Henderson might appeal. This could drag on for months." Marcus closed the folder. "But at least it's a start." His phone rang. It was Robert Chen, his attorney. "Marcus, have you seen the police report?" Robert asked. "Just finished reading it. It's good for your case." "Very good. The department is essentially admitting wrongdoing. If you wanted to file a civil lawsuit, this report would be excellent evidence." "I'm still not interested in a lawsuit," Marcus said. "I understand, but I want you to have all the information. A lawsuit could result in policy changes, court-ordered reforms. Sometimes that's the only way to create real change." Marcus thought about this. He still did not want money. But if a lawsuit could force the department to make systemic changes, maybe it was worth considering. "Let me think about it," Marcus said. "I'll let you know." After he hung up, Marcus looked at his calendar. He had a meeting in 20 minutes with his battalion commanders. Then he had to review training schedules. Then he had to prepare for a visit from congressional representatives next week. His regular work had not stopped because of the incident. The base still needed to run. Soldiers still needed to be trained and led, but it was hard to focus sometimes. His mind would drift back to that night, to Henderson's face, to the feeling of being powerless even though he had power, to the knowledge that his rank and his service had not protected him from discrimination. The meeting with his battalion commanders went well. Afterward, one of them, Lieutenant Colonel James Porter, asked to speak with Marcus privately. "Sir, I wanted to thank you," Porter said. He was a black man about 40 years old who had served for 20 years. "Thank me for what?" Marcus asked. "For not backing down, for standing up to that officer, for filing the complaint." Porter paused. "My son is 16. Last year he was walking home from school when a police officer stopped him. Demanded to know where he was going. Searched his backpack. Made him sit on the curb for 30 minutes. My son was terrified. He called me crying. And there was nothing I could do except tell him to stay calm and comply." Porter's voice was thick with emotion. "When I saw your videos, when I saw how you handled it, it gave me hope. Hope that maybe things can change, that maybe my son won't have to live in fear his whole life." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "We'll make it change," he said. "One case at a time. One complaint at a time. We'll make it change." That evening, Marcus drove home taking a different route than usual. He found himself avoiding the highway where he had been stopped. It felt foolish, but he could not help it. At home, Rachel had dinner waiting. Chicken and rice with vegetables. His favorite comfort food. "You look tired," she said as they sat down to eat. "Long day, but a good day." The Internal Affairs report came back. "It's in my favor," Rachel smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her in 2 weeks. She had been worried, angry. She had barely slept the first few nights after the incident. "That's wonderful news." "Does this mean it's over?" Not yet. They still have to decide on Henderson's punishment. And there's the State Oversight Board investigation too, but it's progress. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Rachel said, "I saw you on the news yesterday. The interview you gave, what did you think? I thought you were brave and eloquent, and I thought how proud I am to be married to you." She reached across the table and took his hand. "But I also wish you didn't have to be brave. I wish this had never happened." "Me too," Marcus said quietly. The next few days brought more developments. The State Oversight Board released a statement saying they were conducting their own investigation. They had interviewed witnesses and reviewed the evidence. Their report would be released in 4 to 6 weeks. Civil rights organizations had also taken notice of the case. Several groups reached out to offer support. They wanted to organize rallies. They wanted to use Marcus's story to push for legislation requiring body cameras and better training for police officers. Marcus met with representatives from 3 different organizations. He listened to their ideas. He appreciated their passion, but he was careful about attaching his name to any specific group or agenda. He wanted his message to be clear and focused. Not political, not divisive. "I'm not anti-police," he told one group. "Many officers do their jobs with integrity and courage. But the system has problems, serious problems, and those problems need to be fixed." A week after the Internal Affairs report came out, Marcus received a phone call from Police Chief Robert Daniels. The chief asked if Marcus would be willing to meet with him in person. Marcus agreed. The meeting was held in a neutral location, a conference room at the town hall. Chief Daniels was a white man in his late 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. He was accompanied by a representative from the police union and the department's legal counsel. Marcus brought Robert Chen with him. The chief started the meeting with an apology. "Colonel Thompson, on behalf of the entire department, I want to apologize for what happened to you. Officer Henderson's actions were unacceptable. They do not represent the values of our department." Marcus nodded but said nothing. He wanted to hear what else the chief had to say. "We have reviewed the Internal Affairs report," the chief continued, "and we have made a decision regarding Officer Henderson's employment. Effective immediately, he is being terminated from the department. He will not work as a police officer in this town again." Marcus felt a small sense of satisfaction. Henderson was being held accountable. That was important. Additionally, the chief said, "We are implementing several policy changes. All officers will be required to undergo bias training. We are accelerating our body camera program. Every officer will have a camera within 6 months. And we are establishing a civilian oversight committee to review complaints against officers." These were good changes. Real changes. Marcus looked at Robert, who nodded slightly. "I appreciate these steps," Marcus said, "but I have questions. First, will Henderson face any criminal charges for assault?" The chief shifted uncomfortably. "That decision is up to the district attorney's office. We have forwarded our findings to them." "And what about Officer Mitchell? Your report mentioned that she failed to intervene earlier. What consequences will she face?" "Officer Mitchell is receiving a formal written reprimand. She will also undergo additional training on duty to intervene. But we believe she showed good judgment in eventually speaking up. She's a young officer with potential. We don't want to end her career over this." Marcus thought about this. He agreed that Mitchell had shown some courage in questioning Henderson. She had been the one to stop the situation from getting worse. "I can accept that," Marcus said, "as long as she truly learns from this experience." The meeting lasted another hour. They discussed details of the policy changes. They talked about timelines and implementation. The chief was clearly eager to move past the incident, to show that his department was taking action. Before they left, Marcus said one more thing. "Chief Daniels, I want to be clear about something. I'm not your enemy. I don't want to destroy your department. But I also won't accept empty promises. These policy changes need to be real. They need to be permanent. And they need to actually change how your officers treat people." "I understand," the chief said, "and I give you my word that we will follow through." "Your word," Marcus said. "That's good. But I'll also be watching. And so will a lot of other people." As Marcus and Robert walked out of the town hall, Robert said, "That went better than I expected. Henderson being fired is a significant outcome. And the policy changes could make a real difference." "Could," Marcus repeated. "That's the key word. We'll see if they actually follow through." That night, Marcus could not sleep again. He kept thinking about everything that had happened. The traffic stop, the investigation, the meetings, the policy changes. Part of him felt satisfied. Henderson was fired. The department was making changes. Justice was being served, at least partially. But another part of him felt exhausted, frustrated. One case had taken so much time and energy. And for every case like his that got attention, how many others went unnoticed? He thought about Porter's 16-year-old son, about his own son, David, about all the young black men and women who would face similar situations. Would these policy changes in one small town really make a difference? Maybe, maybe not. But it was something. And sometimes something was all you could hope for. Marcus finally fell asleep around 2 a.m. He dreamed about driving down an endless highway. In the dream, there were no flashing lights behind him, no officers stopping him, just open road stretching out ahead. It was a good dream. 6 months had passed since that night on the highway. The cold winter had turned into a warm spring. Trees were blooming. The world looked different. And in some ways, Marcus felt different too. He was sitting in his office at Fort Stevens reviewing paperwork when Major Williams knocked on his door. She was smiling, which usually meant good news. "Sir, you have a visitor. The police chief is here to see you." Marcus looked up in surprise. Chief Daniels had not contacted him in over 2 months. Not since their last meeting about the policy changes. "Show him in." The chief walked in looking more relaxed than the last time Marcus had seen him. He was not wearing his uniform, just a simple button-down shirt and pants. "Colonel Thompson," the chief said, extending his hand. "Thank you for seeing me without an appointment." Marcus shook his hand and gestured to a chair. "What can I do for you, Chief?" "I wanted to give you an update in person. The Civilian Oversight Committee has been formed. We now have 7 community members who review all complaints against officers. They've already reviewed 3 cases and made recommendations." "That's good to hear," Marcus said. "And every officer now has a body camera. We've had them for 3 months. There's been a significant drop in complaints since the cameras were implemented. Officers are more careful when they know they're being recorded." Marcus nodded. This was exactly the kind of change he had hoped for. "But that's not the only reason I'm here," the chief continued. "I wanted to ask if you would be willing to speak to our officers at our next department-wide training session about your experience, about bias, about how to do better." Marcus leaned back in his chair. This was unexpected. "You want me to speak to your officers?" "Yes, I think it would be powerful. More powerful than any trainer we could bring in. You lived through what happens when an officer lets prejudice guide their actions. Your perspective could really make a difference." Marcus thought about this carefully. Part of him did not want to relive that night again. Did not want to stand in front of police officers and be vulnerable. But another part of him knew this could be important. Could be meaningful. "Will Officer Mitchell be there?" Marcus asked. "Yes, she's still with the department. She's actually become one of our strongest advocates for reform." "Then I'll do it," Marcus said. "When is the training?" "Next month. I'll send you the details." "And Colonel?" "Thank you. This means a lot." After the chief left, Marcus sat quietly for a while. Then he picked up his phone and called Rachel. "Guess what just happened?" he said when she answered. He told her about the chief's visit and the request to speak to the police officers. Rachel was quiet for a moment. "How do you feel about that?" she asked, nervous. "But I think it's the right thing to do." "Then I'm proud of you." Again. That evening, Marcus drove home using his usual route, the highway where Henderson had stopped him. He had started using that road again about a month ago. The first few times had been hard. His hands would grip the steering wheel tighter. His eyes would check the rearview mirror constantly. But each time got easier, and now it was just a road again. Nothing more. When he got home, there was a car in the driveway he did not recognize. He walked in to find David sitting at the kitchen table with Rachel. His son had driven home from college to surprise him. "Dad." David stood up and hugged him tightly. "I wanted to see you, and I have something to tell you." They sat down together. David looked excited and nervous at the same time. "I changed my major," David said. "I'm not going to be an engineer anymore." Marcus felt a small pang of disappointment. David had always been good at math and science. Engineering had seemed like a perfect fit. "What are you going to study instead?" "Criminal justice. I want to go to law school after I graduate. I want to become a civil rights attorney." Marcus stared at his son. Then he felt his eyes getting wet. He blinked rapidly. Why? He managed to ask. Because of you, David said. Because of what happened to you. And because I realize that there are so many people who face injustice and discrimination, and they don't have anyone to fight for them. I want to be that person. I want to help. Rachel was crying openly now. She reached across and took David's hand. We're so proud of you. Marcus could not speak for a moment. His son, his 19-year-old son who had watched his father get humiliated on the side of a road, who had grown up afraid of police officers, who had experienced his own moments of discrimination, and instead of becoming bitter or afraid, David had chosen to fight back, to help others. You're going to be amazing, Marcus finally said. You're going to change lives. They stayed up late that night talking. David told them about his classes, about his plans for law school, about the internships he was already looking into. Marcus told David about the policy changes at the police department, about the upcoming speaking engagement. I want to come, David said. When you speak to the police officers, can I be there? Marcus thought about this, then nodded. Yes, I think that would be good. They need to see you. They need to see that their actions don't just affect one person. They affect families. They affect futures. 4 weeks later, Marcus stood in front of a room full of police officers. There were about 60 of them. Some looked interested. Some looked skeptical. Some looked defensive. Chief Daniels introduced him. This is Colonel Marcus Thompson. I think many of you recognize his name, and I think all of you need to hear what he has to say. Marcus stepped forward. David was sitting in the back of the room. Rachel was next to him. Mitchell was in the front row. Her eyes were focused intently on Marcus. 6 months ago, Marcus began, I was driving home from visiting my mother. I was pulled over by one of your former colleagues, Officer Dale Henderson. What happened during that traffic stop changed my life, not because of what it cost me, but because of what it revealed. He spoke for 30 minutes. He described the fear he had felt, the humiliation, the anger, but he also spoke about hope, about the possibility of change, about the responsibility that came with wearing a badge. When you put on that uniform, Marcus said, you have incredible power, the power to help people, to protect people, but also the power to hurt people, to traumatize people. Every interaction you have matters, every traffic stop, every conversation, every decision you make about who looks suspicious and who doesn't. He looked around the room. Some officers were nodding. Others looked uncomfortable. I'm not here to tell you that you're all racist, Marcus continued. I'm not here to attack you or blame you. But I am here to tell you that bias exists in all of us. And if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't work to overcome it, it will guide our actions. It will hurt innocent people. He told them about the young soldiers on his base, about Lieutenant Colonel Porter's son, about his own son. These are good people, Marcus said. People who work hard, who follow the rules, who contribute to society, but they live with fear every single day. Fear that they will be judged by their skin color instead of their character. Fear that a simple traffic stop could turn into something dangerous. You have the power to change that. You have the power to make people feel safe instead of scared. When he finished speaking, there was silence in the room. Then Mitchell started clapping. Slowly, others joined in. Not everyone, but many. Afterward, several officers came up to speak with Marcus. Some thanked him. Some apologized. One older officer, a black man with gray hair, shook Marcus's hand firmly. I've been on the force for 30 years, the officer said, and I've experienced what you experienced more times than I can count. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for not staying silent. Marcus also spoke with Mitchell privately. She looked older than she had 6 months ago, more serious. Sir, I want you to know that I think about that night constantly, she said. About what I should have done differently, about how I should have stopped it sooner. You did speak up eventually, Marcus said. That took courage. Not enough courage, not soon enough. Mitchell paused. But I'm trying to do better now. I'm trying to be the kind of officer who stands up, who intervenes, who doesn't let bad behavior go unchallenged. That's all any of us can do, Marcus said. Learn, grow, do better. Over the next few months, Marcus's life slowly returned to normal. The media attention faded. The social media posts slowed down. People stopped recognizing him in stores, but the impact of what happened continued to spread. The police department's policy changes became a model for other departments. Other towns started implementing similar reforms. Body cameras, civilian oversight committees, mandatory bias training. Marcus received letters from people across the country. People who had filed complaints after seeing what he did. People who had stood up to officers instead of staying silent. People who had found the courage to demand accountability. He saved every letter in a box in his office. Sometimes, when he had a hard day, he would read through them. They reminded him why he had spoken up, why he had refused to just let it go and move on. One afternoon, almost a year after the incident, Marcus received a phone call from a number he did not recognize. He answered cautiously. "Colonel Thompson? This is Dale Henderson." Marcus froze. He had not heard from Henderson since that night, had not wanted to hear from him. "What do you want?" Marcus asked. There was a long pause. Then Henderson said, "I wanted to apologize. A real apology. Not the kind lawyers write. I treated you terribly that night. I let my prejudices control my actions. I saw your skin color and I made assumptions. Racist assumptions. And I'm sorry." Marcus did not know what to say. He had not expected this. "I'm not a police officer anymore," Henderson continued. "After I was fired, I had a lot of time to think, to really look at myself. I've been going to therapy, working through my biases, trying to understand where they came from and how to change them." "That's good," Marcus said carefully. "But it doesn't erase what happened." "I know. Nothing can erase it. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. You deserved better. Everyone deserves better." After they hung up, Marcus sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. He did not know if Henderson's apology was genuine. He did not know if Henderson had really changed or if he was just saying what he thought Marcus wanted to hear. But maybe it did not matter. What mattered was that Henderson was no longer a police officer. What mattered was that the department had made changes. What mattered was that other people were being treated more fairly because Marcus had stood up. That evening, Marcus and Rachel sat on their back porch watching the sunset. David was back at school. The house was quiet. "Do you ever regret it?" Rachel asked. "Filing the complaint? Going through all of that?" Marcus thought about the question. About the stress and the anger and the exhaustion. About the nights he could not sleep. About becoming a public figure when all he had wanted was to drive home in peace. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it. If I had stayed silent, Henderson would still be a police officer. The department wouldn't have made changes, and nothing would be different." "You're a good man, Marcus Thompson," Rachel said softly. "I'm just a man who refused to accept injustice," Marcus replied. "That's all." But even as he said it, he knew it was more than that. It took courage to stand up. It took strength to demand accountability. It took patience to see the process through. 2 years after the incident, Marcus received an award from a national civil rights organization. They honored him for his advocacy and his courage. The ceremony was held in Washington, D.C. David came home from law school for it. Rachel wore a beautiful blue dress. Marcus wore his dress uniform with all his medals. When he stood at the podium to accept the award, he looked out at the audience. He saw other activists, other people who had fought their own battles against discrimination, other people who had refused to stay silent. "This award is not just for me," Marcus said. "It's for every person who has ever been judged by their appearance instead of their actions. It's for every person who has faced discrimination and fought back. It's for every person who believes that we can do better, that we must do better." He looked at David and Rachel in the front row. They were both smiling proudly. "Change is slow," Marcus continued. "Change is hard, but change is possible. One complaint at a time, one policy reform at a time, one person at a time. We can create a more just society. We can create a world where no one has to live in fear, where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. That's the world I fought for in uniform, and that's the world I will continue to fight for as a citizen." The applause was long and loud, but Marcus was not thinking about the applause or the award. He was thinking about that night on the highway, about standing on the side of the road with Henderson's hand on his arm, about the choice he had made to stand up instead of giving in. That choice had mattered. That choice had changed things, and that choice would continue to echo long after Marcus was gone. Sometimes one person standing up was all it took to start a movement. Sometimes refusing to accept injustice was the bravest thing a person could do. And sometimes, just sometimes, the system actually worked the way it was supposed to. Marcus Thompson had learned all of this the hard way, but he had learned it, and he had made sure that others learned it too. As he left the stage with the award in his hands, Marcus felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt hope. Real hope. Hope that the future could be better than the past. Hope that his son would grow up in a more just world. Hope that change, slow as it was actually happening. It was enough. For now, it was enough.